Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Friday. How's everyone doing? PPI Friday. All right, we got everybody in here. Thank you. We got Sterling. Oh, we also have the JP Morgan earnings, BlackRock, Wells Fargo. Sterling putting all that in the chat for us, and we'll get through those numbers in a second. Good morning, Sterling. Thanks for being here. I guess you have some free time from work because putting in all the important information we have. Good morning, Jacob. Frog. Percent beat buy entry on Wednesday. Rumors of a takeover today. Okay. All right. Good morning and happy Friday to you. Fastenal Company, EPS 52 cents, estimated a 13.5, revenue 1.91 billion, estimates 1.9, a beat from Fastenal. Thanks. I'm not going to go through all these, but Sterling put in a bunch of stuff like natural gas up 25%, propane up 20%, sugar up 20, beef up 19, oats up 14. Stuff's not going down, especially in China's expected with more stimulus announcements tomorrow. We shall see. And then we have the PPI numbers, which we'll look at in 1 second. Don't forget about our inflating returns. Well, okay. Next, good morning, McRangers. Hello, Charles. Sterling, you're putting in stuff that nobody has to buy, like electricity. You don't need electricity. You don't need gas. What? Come on. You don't need to fly because you can drive without gas. Groceries are only up 22.1% since Biden took office. Eggs 69.2. That's a big bummer for me. I love my eggs. TGIF, Richard. Oh boy, you're really putting real average weekly earnings. Well, see, because you haven't kept up. Car insurance only up 56.5. Well, who needs to insure their car? Come on. You don't need that. So, what else do we have here? All right. Let's look at the other information. PPI headline number today. Let me move some windows out of the way. Coming in a little less. Headline number not doing so bad. Year over year coming in a little lower, but the core PPI coming in higher. Last month's PPI was also revised higher. So core still coming 2.8 year over year. Prior was 2.4. Consensus was 2.7. So that's still coming in. So you still have core PPI coming in a lot hotter. What else do we have? We have the inflation expectations and consumer sentiment coming out. These are the preliminary numbers for October, coming out at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Really pay attention to the inflation expectations to see if they drop or rise or stay the same. So I'll be watching. Isn't this a perfect name for October? Goolsby. The Goolsby is speaking today. With Halloween approaching in a couple weeks, so we got Goolsby and we got Bowman speaking. They were all happy yesterday about inflation. Inflation's coming down and the employment's strong. Oh, geez. Then we have to start next week off with more Fed speak. All right. Well, you can see here we have. Let me look at this real quick. You have Sterling put in fast now. I also skipped over, but JP Morgan, Chase, and BlackRock all did well with earnings. Okay, so that is out of the way. And you see here, actually, this is starting to pull back a bit. Let me refresh this. JP Morgan was up earlier and now is dropping a bit. Wells Fargo is still up 3.5%. BAC up 1.9. So you have some still banks up. JP Morgan's pretty flat. Tesla, after their robo-taxi day, I guess investors didn't think that was such the hit. Down 6.5%. Chips pulling back. Hey, Uber's rallying though. What else do we have in terms of groups? We have financials still leading, but pulling back from earlier. So the more of the euphoria in financial is pulling back a bit. Consumer cyclical and utilities dropping. Rates were rising again. I got a peek at what they've done recently, but the 10-year yield was up again earlier. Fed watch still favors the 25 basis point cut, 25 basis point cut, and another one, 25 in December. Fear and greed still solid in greed. Schiller PE 37. All right. You got your silver there. Here's our 10-year. Yep, coming up. Possibly right in front of a little key harmonic level, making a little double top in the yields. That would be for a slight pullback only if it does trigger back to the daily rotation zone and prior key support area. We've got cycles at the top. This is getting very overbought. The next target, we're approaching my next key target, this 4.16. That's going to be, if we push up there, we're at the minor levels, we're stalling out, but the major levels, that's where I'll start watching for more of a stall out. It's been climbing pretty rapidly. Back to the S&P. Back to the S&P here. So far, we broke out, and now we're holding yesterday, holding the key support, this 58.12 area. I'm really paying attention to yesterday's high and low, but we are getting the cycle tops on the daily and on the weekly with waning momentum and divergences setting up. So I'm starting to prepare more for either a more substantial sideways correction again, like the last one, or a pullback. And with cycles at the top for daily and weekly, I'm going to be prepared, especially next week, for a potential pullback at least into the weekly rotation zone. But nothing is triggered yet and set up. We've still stalled out against the minor harmonic cluster area. If we do break through these tops around 58.45, 58.56 is minor, and then we have 58.71. Those are the two levels. Really key on any sell-off is yesterday's low, 58.11.50. We break through there, there's still a very strong support zone between 5800 and 58.11. So I'll be watching for support in there. It would take it to break below about 5800 before I'd have to start getting into sell mode unless there is a short-term top pattern, which there really isn't going into the open yet. So there's nothing yet. You see we're down the 15-minute going in the open. You got the buying pressure between about 58.14 to 58.17 and the selling pressure coming in about 58.36. So those are the key levels we'll be looking at into the open. The NASDAQ, remember we still have the bigger potential double top, long way off from triggering. NASDAQ's pulling back. Key area was the open from Wednesday, the close from Tuesday, which is roughly around the open from Wednesday, and the spike low from yesterday. So 20,300 on any pullback in the NASDAQ with the rising rotation zone. But beyond that, the next key level is 20,163. Looking to the upside, on any bounce, we have a lot of selling pressure right above 20,450. So I cannot get overly bullish unless we start really taking out 20,500. Sorry, 20,500. Don't forget to like everyone. I do like everyone. I do like everyone. I know what you mean. Thanks, Royal Palms. The Dow, again, just pay attention to yesterday's low for the Dow. And if it does push higher, 43,000 is key. We don't need to dwell on that. There's not a lot of great setups in the Dow right now. Russell coming off the 50 yesterday and the 50% harmonic you see right here. The 50% harmonic and the 50 EMA gave a little support zone bouncing up. That's why I'm watching yesterday's low again, this 2182 area, because we start breaking that, it could be a quick trip to 2151. To the upside, the major resistance is still 2220. The VIX still staying elevated. Still staying very, very elevated with cycles getting to the bottom of the VIX. That's why I'm watching for a more significant top to potentially come in next week. And it's options expiration next Friday, isn't it? So it could get interesting next week. The DAX triggering a double, it'll pull back to the rotation zone, trying to rotate back up. We still have the target areas about 19.5, then major target 19.575, and then the recent highs. 10-year recovered a bit yesterday, trying to sort of put in a bottom here. So we'll be watching for a bottom to come in on the notes, and we already talked about the yield. We have the little minor topping pattern. On any push higher, I'd be watching for a more significant top around that 4.16. But if we triggered a minor topping pattern with cycles at the top and very overbought, I'll start watching for the rollover play. 10-2s, and that's a short-term pullback play, not a long-term pullback play. 10-2s trying to climb back up over 20 basis points. Dollar index. Look at this, little dip back to the key support area and the rising rotation zone and a bounce up. So I'm still watching for at least a pause. Right now we've had roughly a sideways correction with some volatility in it. We have very overbought in cycles at the top, so I'm watching at least for a sideways correction coming in here. And it's coming up against also the 50% harmonic and the cluster projection, 103. If we do manage to get to 103, I'll be watching for the more significant pause. Crude, I was watching for the pullback. We got the break up yesterday with like a lot of commodities being bought, but did not close above the 62.5. If we close back above 75.86, I got to shift to at least a retest of this key outside reversal bar high area tested. So I was watching for a pullback. We got the rally instead. And we are getting cycles back to the bottom with the rising rotation zone. So on any shorter term bounces, I need to close above 75.86 to continue to be in the bullish mode. Gold, we're getting the rotation up finally yesterday. Yesterday we got the rotation up, and then today breaking the high. No, not a percent beat buy, but breaking the high, following through, trying to close above the channel. Right now at the 50% harmonic, 26.66. We'll continue to watch with this rotation. So we had a pullback, a flagging pullback, close to the weekly rotation zone, and now trying to rotate back up with cycles going to the top. So I'm watching for continue to follow through to possibly follow through and retest this high area. That we'll have to see going into next week with everything rallying, even like copper, trying to put in a little base here. Silver, which triggered the double, didn't even get to the first target. It's not been invalidated yet. But, you know, when something can't even get to the first target, there's some underlying strength in silver. The yen, so far, a sideways correction. With yen weakening, remember the next target is 150. Euro, officially, we stalled out just above the first target yesterday, but then officially hit it. So now it's the official. I said I'd lower it yesterday during the live stream, and then we officially hit the first stop reduction anyways, with cycles at the bottom. So I'll be watching for at least a bounce play in this, but then the rollover, because we still have the magnet prices lower. Spiders could not poke above these areas yesterday, and this is more of a sideways horizontal channel with this price action right now. So very key resistance in the spiders is 577 on any rally. Very key support is 574.60. What else? The Qs. We got to flip the harmonics around. The Qs still have the potential double top in place. A little gap down and in the Qs 491.26. So on any rally, 492.59 would be the first target. Pullback area, very key support coming in at 488. TLT is at a daily uptrend. TLT's been breaking down with, this with TLT again with, I'd be watching for a bounce play now. This was not able to get to a next key harmonic and then broke down below very, very key support. So I am now watching for a potential bounce play in here, but a bounce play only. And the bounce play, I mean, even the 95.50 would be a substantial bounce. And then I'll be watching for the next rollover play in the TLT now with this breakdown. Tesla, yesterday closing below the trend line after bouncing off the 50, but now we're having a key gap down. I said I was watching for the trend line to break, which we broke on the close yesterday. And with Robotaxi disappointment day, now the target for me is 205 roughly over the next few days. But you'll get the buy the dippers in there anyways. NVIDIA, reconnecting again, 87.5. So there's nothing new to talk about there. What else did I miss? Did I miss any other stocks? JP Morgan. JP Morgan. Have to clean up this chart. There's just not a lot of great signals in here. It's interesting that they had, I mean, Sterling put it in earlier, but beat on earnings, beat on major revenue beat. But you see here, unless JP Morgan get above 216.15, not interested. And if this is just going to roll over after earnings, we're going to watch out for this because I got to dive more into what any guidance was because they had a strong beat. But there was not much to talk about. Wells Fargo, which was also a beat on earnings, a miss on revenue. A miss on revenue, but I really do not like the chart setup in Wells Fargo. Heading into, on this gap up, heading into a very key resistance area. I'm going to also be watching for Wells Fargo to roll over next week. What was Frog? Let me click. This is obviously a stock that I do not look at often, but Patrick put in, it had a % B buy. Yes, it did yesterday, and now takeover rumors. So that's something to keep an eye on. I have no, this is not even a stock that I watch, but I mean, sometimes you just get the coincidences where you get some kind of buy set up and then it follows through. Key areas I'd be looking for is 31.50. And then 33.64 if you are in it. Take a look at PAAS. Pan American Silver. Looks like it's trying to recapture the 200 weekly. It is. And that's, you know what? That's a very interesting chart. What happened there? Oh, there we go. I was like, what happened to my candles? That is an interesting. Let's take a look at the short-term harmonics because it's trying to break out. It's trying to break out. So, you know, a key target, if we can get above this 2267, 2347 would be a minor target for me. And then if this breaks to new recent highs, let's take a look. Because that is the perfect area to use the harmonics. And let's see how this ties in. Thank you for putting this one up there, Sterling. Look at that. Look at that. Trying to regain everything. Held the 50. Yeah, broke below the EMA, but really held a key support zone down here. held the key support zone and the 50 EMA. Trying to break out higher. This could be an interesting setup if it can follow through, because a little longer term target area, I'd be looking at this 2582 to 2615 as a very key target. Bitcoin for dark screen. The good old Bitcoin. Bitcoin up today, but nothing much. I mean, Bitcoin in the short term has to really start breaking above this channel at about 66,000. Now, you would technically have a percent B buy in the short term for a very short term bounce above, if it follows through and closes above Thursday's high. But I'd be watching for this. We might get some selling pressure coming in at the open. So I pay attention to that, and I pay attention to how Bitcoin reacts to that. If I had to rank your top 3 performing futures by returns year to date, well, the top one is easy. That's gold. I'd have to look for the other ones, but gold's the easiest. Silver's up there. Silver's up there, not so much for copper. Had to performing futures. I mean, it's really been the commodities. It's really been the commodities. And then, I mean, if you're just looking at pure futures, it's been the S&P. So it's really gold, silver, and the S&P. You're welcome, Jake. I put it on hold for a bit, Richard. Nothing new. You know, just there's very little turnover right now. Yeah, there's some still cash buyers out there and paying stupid prices. There's one thing I have a eye on, but people just aren't budging. People aren't budging. They're like, I want what I want. Even with other comp sales that have gone lower, they're like, they just ignore it. If you point them out there, you're like, you're at 3 something, and there's just been 2 homes in your same neighborhood sold for $290 a square foot, and they're like, no, not interested. So I'm just being very patient. Do you trade gold? What do you mean? Do I trade gold? Yeah, I cover gold, and from a longer term perspective, yes. I don't day trade gold. No. Why don't build my home? I don't really feel like building a home. I've done major renovations, major gut rehabs, and I don't have that in me. I have to go find a suitable piece of land. I was thinking of doing that. I was thinking of looking for land and then doing stuff. But if I can't find something in a while, I might consider that. So we'll see. I mean, they're still building. Builders are still building, but a lot of the new builds are the new builds that are in an area I want they're still building astronomical prices because there's not many of them. If you go way out, the new builds, you can get some competitive deals, but they're not in an area that I'm really looking to live. So if I want to go way out, then yeah, you can get some decent stuff. And I've looked at them. I've gone to look at the builders and talk to them. I'm just, again, being patient. It's like sometimes in a market that you want to trade, there's not a good setup. So it's sit on the hands and wait. Wait for the good setup. I'm going to keep an eye on stuff also because a lot of people are getting disappointed. Why? Because remember, the 10-year pretty much front ran the Fed. And mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year, and all these agents are like, well, why are mortgage rates going back up? Well, look at your 10-year, up from 3.6 to 4.1. That took mortgage rates up by half a percentage point again. So people are like, oh, now what are we going to do? So that's where sometimes things just take time. Yeah, I probably would get better quality if I self-built. Well, I'm glad. I don't day trade gold. I I liked the financial futures better for day trading. All right. Thanks for the questions. Let's just peek back up in the S&P. Again, I don't have any problem with whoever wants to trade anything. Just make sure you have good setups. Make sure you're managing your risk reward. Some people love to day trade gold. That's fine. It's just not something that I like, but other people do. And that's, you just find what works for you. That's the whole name of this game. Find what works for you and be consistent. Uh, Going into the open, we'll just wait one more minute for the tick. I'm curious where that opens. Short term going in, I'm watching this now over a 58.22 area. If we do break down, pretty quick trip to the 58.16s, and we have major resistance from 58.32. All right, let's see where this tick is. Not a very strong tick opening at all. So, going to be watching for to see what the market does on the tick rollover. On the tick rollover to see if it holds or if we start getting selling pressure, especially below minus 400 tick. But do pay attention because in 30 minutes you have the consumer sentiment numbers. Don't be lulled to sleep ahead of consumer sentiment numbers, especially the inflation expectations. All right, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Remember, if you don't have any good setups, it's a Friday. You don't need to force anything, especially after Europe's close on a Friday. My advice is do not force trades. I really appreciate everyone tuning in, and I shall see everyone next week. Bye for now.